The contract. The message pulsed across the quantum array with an urgency that made Vexillar's neural implants tingle. The bounty network rarely saw offers this extravagant. And never from humans. Elite mercenary required. Hazard pay triple standard. Completion bonus. 50,000 star crystals. Species restriction. None. Client. Human interstellar security. Vexillar's 6 eyes blinked in rapid succession as he calculated the value. 50,000 star crystals could buy a small moon in the outer systems. It could clear his debts 10 times over. It could put him back on top after the Proxima Centauri disaster had left his reputation in tatters. The cantina on Drift Station Epsilon 9 buzzed with the usual mix of mercenaries, smugglers, and fringe dwellers. Most were giving Vexillar a wide berth. Even with his combat exoskeleton powered down, the Thriaxian mercenary cut an imposing figure. 3 meters of chitinous armor, neural-linked weaponry, and a reputation for completing impossible contracts. Or at least, he used to have that reputation. You'd be insane to take a human job, rasped Corva, the station's information broker. Her serpentine body coiled around her favorite perch behind the bar. The last 5 teams who took human contracts never returned. Vexillar clicked his mandibles dismissively. Urban legends. No legend. Corva's tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Razzle's entire squad. The Crimson Talons. Even the Void Wraiths. All gone. The Void Wraiths. That gave Vexillar pause. The Void Wraiths were legendary. A full combat team of enhanced Draconid warriors with millennia of collective experience. What happened to them? Nobody knows. That's the point. Corva leaned closer. There's a reason humans have to offer ridiculous sums for off-world help. The smarter mercenaries know to stay away. I'm desperate, not smart, Vexillar muttered, transferring payment for his synth-med. The bitter fluid sizzled against his feeding apparatus. My ship's impounded, my accounts are frozen, and there's a Galactic Authority warrant waiting if I don't pay back Jexor the financier by the next lunar cycle. Corva's scales rippled in the equivalent of a shrug. Your funeral pyre, Thriaxian. 3 cycles later, Vexillar found himself aboard a human transport ship bound for Earth. The vessel was surprisingly Spartan for a species known for their extravagance. All utilitarian gray surfaces and efficient design. No embellishments, no comfort modifications for alien physiology. Typical human arrogance. The human officer who greeted him was equally austere. Commander Alexis Chen stood a full meter shorter than Vexillar, but somehow managed to look down at him nonetheless. You're the mercenary, she asked, eyes scanning his combat rig with professional assessment. Vexillar of Thriax, he confirmed. Veteran of the Orion conflict, survivor of the Hive Wars, and disgraced former leader of the Proxima Centauri extraction team. She finished for him. Yes, we're thorough with our background checks. Vexillar's carapace heated with embarrassment. That operation was compromised before it began. So you claim. Commander Chen gestured for him to follow. This way. The mission brief is classified until we're in secure space. As they moved through the ship, Vexillar noticed something peculiar. The human crew didn't stare at him with the usual mixture of fear and fascination that most species directed toward Thriaxians. Instead, they barely acknowledged his presence, going about their duties with practiced efficiency. Your crew seems unusually comfortable with aliens, Vexillar observed. Chen's lips curved slightly. We've seen worse. The briefing room was small, with a holographic display dominating the center. 4 other humans waited inside, all wearing the same gray uniforms with subtle differences in insignia that Vexillar couldn't decipher. This is the target, Chen said without preamble, activating the display. A rotating image of a research facility appeared, built into what appeared to be a mountainside on a desolate planet. Research Outpost Omega-7, established 30 Earth years ago on Kepler 186 VEF. Official purpose: Cynobiological research. Actual purpose: classified. Vexlar studied the structure. Looks defensible. What happened to it? We lost contact 18 days ago. The last transmission was concerning. She tapped a control and audio filled the room. Coming through the walls. They're not. This isn't possible. The containment field is static. God help us. They'd reached the core lab. Don't let them. Screaming. RUN. It's in TAE light. It's in THE. The recording ended abruptly. Charming, Vexlar said, suppressing a shudder. And what exactly am I retrieving from this nightmare? Commander Chen's face remained impassive. A data core, black box, roughly the size of your forearm. Virtually indestructible. Contains all research data and surveillance records. Zhang secured the data core in a specialized containment unit. Where to next, Commander? Chen pulled up a star chart showing hundreds of marked locations across the galaxy. Research outposts, dimensional breach points, and integration facilities. Everywhere, she said simply. Phase 1 is complete. It's time to bring our friends home. In the cargo hold below, a containment field hummed around a small dimensional rift, a portable version of the one from the research facility. Within it, shapes moved with growing purpose, waiting to be released. And throughout the galaxy, mercenary networks began sharing a new rule. No matter the payment, no matter the desperation, no matter the client's reputation, never, ever take a human contract. Not even for all the star crystals in the universe / Earth tried to kill us every step of the way. Zhang said simply. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, meteor impacts, plagues. Our planet taught us to survive extinction-level events before we even developed language. We're not just another sentient species. We're extinction event survivors. Before Vexlar could respond, the ship's alarms blared. Commander Chen's voice came over the intercom. All personnel to stations. Approach vector compromised. Unknown energy signature detected from the planet's surface. Vexlar rushed to the bridge alongside Zhang. The view screen showed Kepler 186 F growing larger. A blue-green world similar to Earth, but with more prominent oceans. A red targeting reticle highlighted a pulsing energy signature coming from the exact coordinates of Research Outpost Omega-7. What is that? Vexlar demanded. Commander Chen's face was grim. That, Mercenary Vexlar, is why we hired you. Welcome to your contract. The ship shuddered violently as a beam of blinding light shot from the planet's surface, engulfing them completely. The last thing Vexlar saw before losing consciousness was Lieutenant Rivera calmly loading his strange rifle, looking not surprised but prepared, as though he'd always known what waited for them. And in that moment, Vexlar understood why galactic mercenaries refused human contracts, even for a fortune in star crystals. The humans always knew exactly what they were walking into. The truth revealed. Consciousness returned to Vexlar in painful bursts, his neural implants struggling to reboot after the unexpected shutdown. His vision flickered between darkness and strobing emergency lights as the ship's systems attempted recovery. He's coming around, a voice said. Zhang, the young human specialist. Vexlar's mandibles clicked reflexively as his body conducted an automatic damage assessment. No major injuries, but his exoskeleton's power reserves were critically low. Whatever that beam had been, it had drained nearly everything electronic. What happened? He managed, his translator implant sputtering with static. Lieutenant Rivera appeared in Vexlar's field of vision, his face illuminated by the red emergency lighting. EMP, but not like any we've seen before, targeted our systems specifically. Vexlar struggled to a sitting position, noting that the humans seemed relatively unaffected. Your equipment still functions, hardened against electromagnetic attacks, Commander Chen explained, entering the room. Standard protocol for special containment missions. Another piece of evidence that humans were far more prepared and knowledgeable than they pretended to be. Vexlar's suspicion deepened. The ship. Navigation and propulsion are offline, Chen said. Life support on backup power. We're effectively stranded until repairs can be completed. Which means the mission proceeds on foot, Rivera added, checking his weapon. The outpost is 17 kilometers from our current position. If we move now, we can reach it by nightfall. Vexlar's neural implants finally stabilized, allowing him to stand. His combat exoskeleton hummed weakly as backup systems engage. You still intend to proceed, after being shot down. The mission hasn't changed, Chen said firmly. Only the approach vector. And what exactly is waiting for us at this outpost that can target ships in orbit? Vexlar demanded. The humans exchanged glances before Chen answered. That's what we're going to find out. As they prepared to disembark, Vexlar observed the humans' equipment more carefully. Their environmental suits were lightweight, but appeared remarkably durable, and each team member carried specialized gear alongside their weapons, sensor arrays, sample containers, and what looked suspiciously like containment fields. This wasn't a retrieval mission. It was a containment operation. The planet's surface proved deceptively Earth-like. Gravity at 1.1 standard, atmosphere oxygen-rich, but with elevated noble gas concentrations, terrain consisting of rolling hills covered in violet vegetation. Beautiful, if one ignored the smoking debris field their ship had created upon impact. Stay alert, Rivera warned as they began their trek. This planet was classified as uninhabited during initial surveys, but the outpost's research suggests otherwise. What exactly were they researching? Vexlar asked. Officially, xenomicrobiological samples, Chen replied. Unofficially, dimensional anomalies. Vexlar's translator struggled with the term. Dimensional anomalies. Tears in the fabric of space-time, Zhang elaborated, places where the boundaries between realities grow thin. This was beyond concerning. Even the most advanced galactic civilizations approached dimensional research with extreme caution. The risks of cross-dimensional contamination were too great. Entire systems had been quarantined after failed experiments. That's illegal under Galactic Compact laws, Vexlar said. Section 47B explicitly prohibits. We never signed a Galactic Compact, Chen interrupted. Remember, the truth began to dawn on Vexlar. Humans hadn't been restricted from expanding beyond their solar system because they were primitive or politically inconvenient. They'd been contained. The Council knows about this research, he realized aloud. The Council suspects, Chen corrected, but they can't prove anything without evidence, hence the importance of retrieving that data core. As they crested a hill, the research facility came into view in the valley below. From a distance, it looked intact, a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and laboratories built into the mountainside. But as they drew closer, the damage became apparent. Massive sections of the exterior walls were simply gone, not destroyed or collapsed, but absent, as though portions of the structure had been precisely excised from reality. By the first egg, Vexlar breathed. What happened here? Dimensional breach, Rivera said grimly, raising his rifle. Zhang. Readings? The specialist activated a device on her wrist. Ambient dimensional energy levels are off the charts. Multiple breach points detected. The largest is centered on the main laboratory. Our target, Chen confirmed. The data core would be housed there. As they approached the facility perimeter, Vexlar noticed something strange about the vegetation. The violet plants seemed to be growing away from the facility, their stalks bent at unnatural angles as though fleeing something. More disturbing were the shadows. Despite the planet's twin suns shining brightly overhead, the shadows around the facility stretched in physically impossible directions, some upward against gravity, others twisting in spirals along the ground. The laws of physics are breaking down, Jean murmured, recording readings. Localized reality degradation consistent with Class 4 dimensional instability. In simple terms, Vexlar asked. Reality is thin here, Rivera translated, and getting thinner. They entered through a breach in the perimeter wall, weapons raised. The interior was chaos. furniture fused with walls, laboratory equipment suspended in midair, frozen in time. And the bodies. Vexlar had seen death in many forms, but nothing like this. The facility's personnel, human researchers, were transformed. Some had merged with the architecture, their limbs and torsos becoming one with the metal and composite materials. Others were stretched, their bodies elongated to impossible proportions, expressions of terror permanently frozen on distorted faces. What could do this? Vexlar whispered. Not what, Chen said quietly. Where? They'd breached into a dimension with different physical laws. Reality bleeding works both ways. They moved deeper into the facility, following Zhang's readings toward the central laboratory. Every corridor revealed new horrors, time flowing at different rates in adjacent rooms, gravity shifting unpredictably, light bending in ways that hurt to observe. The previous mercenary teams, Vexlar said suddenly. They didn't just die, did they? No, Rivera confirmed. According to outpost communications, the first team encountered a dimensional entity. They apparently tried to capture it. Idiots, Zhang muttered. The entity spread. Rivera continued. The second team was sent to eliminate it. The third to contain it. The fourth and fifth to retrieve data on it. And now us, Vexlar concluded. What makes you think we'll succeed where they failed? Chen's expression was grim. Because we're not here to fight it. We're here to invite it. Before Vexlar could process this revelation, they reached the central laboratory, or what remained of it. The massive chamber had been transformed into something else entirely. The center of the room housed what appeared to be a controlled dimensional tier, a vertical rift in reality, pulsing with energies and spectrums Vexlar's vision couldn't fully process. Around it, reality itself seemed to be unraveling. Equations floated in the air, mathematical formulas made manifest. Time flowed visibly, like currents in water, faster in some spots and slower in others. The data core, Chen said, pointing to a black box secured in a containment field near the rift. Zhang, prepare for extraction. As Zhang approached the core, Vexlar noticed movement within the dimensional tier, shapes and patterns that made his neural implants scream with error messages. Something was watching them from the other side. We need to leave, Vexlar warned. Now. Not without the data, Chen insisted. You don't understand, Vexlar hissed. There's something alive in there. Something conscious. We know, Rivera said calmly, and raised his weapon, not toward the rift, but toward Vexlar. The truth crashed down on Vexlar with terrible clarity. This was never about retrieving data. You're using me as bait. Chen's expression remained neutral. Thriaxians have unique neural architectures, complex enough to attract its attention, but ordered enough to maintain coherence during dimensional transition. You're trying to communicate with it, Vexlar realized in horror. The previous teams failed because the entity had no interest in them, Chen explained. Humans are too simple, too linear in our thinking. But your species thinks in parallel neural networks, multiple simultaneous threads of consciousness. Perfect translator, Zhang added, carefully extracting the data core from its containment field. The dimensional rift pulsed, expanding slightly. The shapes within became more defined, reaching tendrils of non-Euclidean geometry toward them. This is why mercenaries don't return from human contracts, Vexlar said bitterly. You sacrifice them to your experiments. Not sacrifice, Rivera corrected. Elevate. The ones who survived the initial contact became something more. The Void Wraiths were our most successful integration yet. They maintained coherent form even after dimensional merging. That's impossible, Vexlar insisted. The Void Wraiths have been operating for centuries. Chen smiled thinly. Time works differently across dimensions. What was months for us was centuries for them. The rift pulsed again, stronger this time. Objects around the laboratory began to float, and the equations in the air multiplied, filling every available space with glowing symbols. It's responding to you, Zhang said excitedly. looking at her readings. Your neural patterns are creating resonance. Vexillar backed away, but found his movements sluggish as though moving through liquid. I didn't agree to this. Your species denied us access to the Galactic Council, Chen said, her voice hardening. Contained us within our own solar system, called us too dangerous, too unpredictable. This is how we proved them right. The rift expanded suddenly, tendrils of impossible light reaching out to wrap around Vexillar's exoskeleton. His neural implants shrieked before shutting down completely. He tried to activate his emergency teleportation beacon, but nothing happened. What happens to me? He managed to ask as the light enveloped him. If you're compatible, you join the others, Rivera said. If not, he shrugged. The others? Chen gestured to the rift. Humanity's true allies. The ones who understand that dimensional boundaries are just another limit to overcome. As the light consumed him, Vexillar finally understood the truth that no mercenary lived to report. Humans weren't contained to protect them from the galaxy. The galaxy was being protected from them. Because humans had found allies beyond the boundaries of conventional reality. Entities that shared their relentless ambition and disregard for natural law. Together, they weren't just pushing boundaries. They were erasing them. The last thing Vexillar saw before the dimensional energies claimed him was Zhang carefully securing the data core, not to destroy the evidence, but to replicate the experiment elsewhere. This hadn't been a containment failure. It had been a successful test. Vexillar screamed as his consciousness split across multiple realities, fragmenting into parallel versions of himself. In one reality, he was dissolving into pure energy. In another, his exoskeleton was reforming into something new and terrible. In a third, he remained unchanged but could see beyond, into dimensions where human outposts like this one were scattered across thousands of worlds, each cultivating their own rifts, their own bridges. In the spaces between realities, he glimpsed the truth. An armada of impossible beings and transformed mercenaries, led by human pioneers, preparing for a dimensional invasion that no conventional force could stop. With his last coherent thought, Vexillar activated his neural implant's emergency broadcast function, not a distress call, but a warning to all mercenary networks. Never take human contracts. They're not hiring you for your skills. They're recruiting you for transformation. Humans aren't trapped in their solar system. They're being quarantined there. And now they've found a way out. The message pulsed across quantum channels as Vexillar's original form dissolved completely. Aboard an unmarked vessel departing Kepler 186F, Commander Chen reviewed the mission data with satisfaction. Subject integration successful. Neural patterns maintained coherence through transition. The collective will be pleased. The mercenary networks will be alerted now, Rivera noted. His warning message made it through. Good, Chen replied, surprising him. Fear works in our favor. The more they avoid us, the less interference we face. Sounds simple enough. Why the extravagant payment? Because it isn't simple, one of the other humans, a heavily scared male, interjected. This is the 16 we've sent. None have returned. Vexillar's neural implants tingled with danger signals. Corva's warning echoed in his mind. I was told this was a solo job. It was for the others, Chen clarified. We've changed tactics. This time, you'll have us. The scared human stood. Lieutenant Marcus Rivera, Special Containment Division. My team will accompany you to the surface. Vexillar's mandibles twitched with suspicion. If human military can handle this, why hire me at all? Because, Chen said, whatever's in there doesn't respond well to standard tactical approaches. We need unconventional skills and expendable assets, Vexillar added. Chen didn't deny it. The mission pays half in advance. Accept or decline. Vexillar performed rapid calculations. The advance alone would clear his most pressing debts. If he survived to collect the rest, well, he'd be set for life. And if these humans were willing to risk their own lives alongside his, perhaps the mission wasn't completely suicidal. "I accept," he said finally. "When do we deploy?" "We're already on our way," Chen replied. "Arrival in 48 hours. Lieutenant Rivera will brief you on equipment and protocols." As the others filed out, Chen remained behind, studying Vexillar with an intensity that made his exoskeleton itch. "One question," she said quietly. "What have you heard about humans out there in the galaxy?" The question caught him off guard. The usual. Young species. Technologically inferior, but advancing quickly. Aggressive. Unpredictable. Poor grasp of galactic etiquette. Nothing else. No rumors. No warnings. Vexillar hesitated. "There are stories. Mercenaries avoiding human contracts. Disappearances." Chen nodded slowly. "Do you know why the Galactic Council restricts human expansion beyond our solar system?" "Political reasons, resource allocation, the usual bureaucratic nonsense." A cold smile touched Chen's lips. "That's the official story." Before Vexillar could press further, she left, the doors sealing behind her with a pneumatic hiss. During the journey to Kepler 186f, Vexillar observed the human team with growing curiosity. They trained constantly in the ship's combat simulator, ran through equipment checks with obsessive thoroughness, and spoke very little among themselves. More concerning was their equipment. For a supposedly technologically inferior species, their weapons looked remarkably advanced. Not flashy like Galactic Authority gear, but functional in a way that suggested deadly purpose. Lieutenant Rivera carried what appeared to be a standard projectile rifle, but Vexillar noticed unusual power signatures emanating from it. "Never seen a human weapon up close?" Rivera asked, catching Vexillar studying it. "I've seen human weapons," Vexillar replied. "They don't usually glow in wavelengths only visible to three-axion vision." Rivera smiled thinly. "Upgrade. What does it do?" "Hopefully, you won't need to find out." As they approached the Kepler system, Vexillar accessed the ship's data terminal, searching for information about the planet. The file contained standard atmospheric analysis, gravity readings, and terrain mapping, but little about the research facility itself. What was so important about this outpost that warranted such secrecy and expense? The night before planetfall, Vexillar found himself in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the distant stars. His species rarely indulged in contemplation. Three-axions were creatures of action and certainty, but something about this mission disturbed his usual confidence. "Can't sleep." It was the youngest human, a female specialist named Zhang. "Three-axions don't sleep," Vexillar corrected. "We enter regenerative stasis." "And are you having trouble entering?" "Regenerative stasis." Vexillar's mandibles clicked in grudging amusement. "Perhaps." Zhang joined him at the viewport. "First time working with humans." "First time working with any species that isn't paying me directly." "Commander Chen is good people," Zhang said. "She'll honor the contract. If we survive." Zhang was quiet for a moment. "You know, there's a reason humans have to pay so much for alien help. Your charming personalities." She smiled faintly. "It's because we've earned a certain reputation. Most alien species think they understand what humans are. They're wrong." Vexillar turned his full attention to her. "Explain." "Most galactic species evolved in stable environments. Your homeworld, Threax, has had the same climate patterns for 3 million years. Your evolutionary pressures were about competition with other species, not adaptation to changing conditions." "What's your point?"